Hello and welcome to another quick look. Me, I'm Wolf 6. This one of Sparks, A Tale of Ink. Before we start, if you're interested in playing this game, you can get it for free on itch.io. They don't seem to have a Patreon. And if you want me to play a Let's Play series of this game, then tell me, and I'll give it a point, which will put it up higher on the user's choice list. And if you want me to play any other quick look, then tell me, and I'll put it in the quick look section. So, also before we start, we should probably read the synopsis. So, after the so-called sovereign ascended the world's throne as the new god, strange powers awoke in everyone inhabiting the planet. Zhangken, a student interested in this very history, has doubts about the truthfulness of the existing records on this tale. He stumbles upon a clue that steers him onto a road of discovery. Truths, though buried, never to be uncovered, await him. Mysterious monsters and the very workings of the world are standing between him and his goals. Yet luckily, he does not have to overcome these ordeals by himself, as his friends have his back along the way. Sparks, A Tale of Ink will branch into two routes in a later chapter for the reader to discover different truths to piece the entire tale together on their own. Also, I guess another thing before we start, and then I know this is a bit long, but yeah, the last update was 49 days ago as of this recording. And I have to say that because sometimes I do these things and they're like, hey, this project is abandoned. Or you see it and it's like, this was updated 2 years ago. But no, this one a bit less than a month, or a bit more than a month ago. So enough faffing about, let's reset our face. And begin. Prologue. Thus ruled the sovereign. Final chapter. Final chapter? Thus he held the final divine remnant in his hands. The still beating heart of a dead god. Oh, so he was basically doing one of those anime things? As the king felt it merge with his own body, memories flooded back into his mind. Times of happiness, with the man he loved more than anything in the world. Times of war and conflict that two of them could overcome together. Times of loss, as he held the lifeless body of his beloved in his hands on that faithful night. Times of change, as the messenger from the stars began to talk to him, giving the king advice on where to go and what to prepare for. Times of disaster, as the owner of the heart he now held was attacked by a fell creature. And lastly, the decisions he made to save those who would still hang on hope. The remnants of power still cracked through his veins after a hidden potential awoke to him at the border of despair and hope. He had lit the very first spark, the spark of hope. And now, he would have to clear the dark clouds of calamity that were covering Sovereign's short skies. I can read. With the might of a god and his newfound ability at his sides, with all his hope for the future, he only wished that his lover was still looking on to him. As he ascended the world's throne as the sovereign, changing shriek forever. This reads like a religious children's bedtime tale. Oh, but my favorite is the one where God kills almost everybody in the world. Noah's Ark. And God said to Noah, he's gonna build an arky. Chapter 1. What we want, what we really, really want, and what we need. As Zhangken closed the book, he let out a soft groan and dropped the volume to the floor next to his bed, a small dust cloud rising up in response. Dang, man. Dust stuff. 3, 4, 8, 10. 10 more pages that are just praise to the sovereign. Again. He looks younger there, though maybe this is in the past. How dare anyone call this facts in the right mind? The lack of any information regarding agriculture, cuisine, battle techniques, anything. At best, this was a bad attempt at historic romance. No, wait, unless... where are the sources? He proceeds to shoot up to his feet and immediately felt his back hurt. Regret for sudden movement coursed through his being. I wonder if there's a way to read well. Like, not hunched over a desk. Like, one where, like, someone's laying down but kind of vertical and the book's just kind of below their head. Or one where they're laying on their back but the book is kind of like in some kind of apparatus to hold the pages in the right thing. You know? So the weight isn't going all the way on the spine, especially if they're hunched over like I am. How long had he been curled up in this horrible reading position now? He couldn't recall. While doing some stretches to relieve the pain, his gaze wandered through the dorm room. The wooden floor was holding up well, despite the dust that it had been collecting for who knows how long, in addition to being assaulted with books on the regular. The smell of burned wax and smoke lingered everywhere, especially in the fabrics of his bed, his clothes, and fur. It was hard to get rid of those when he couldn't open the window during these rainy seasons, lest he desired water damage on the books. The mere thought of it made his fur bristle. He gave a quick glance to his desk. He could check what he had written down during the previous reading session, but on second thought... Zhangken? Actually, maybe I'll do something which will help me. What was it? Translate? It would save me so much thing. Zhangken.
Zhangken.
Zhangken? What happens if it's in Chinese? Would it sound different?
Zhangken.
Okay, Zhangken. I would have never, put that together. I swear it? Okay, I don't know if I can read. Anyways. In his head, he started to recount. I mean, I guess with his, it's on a... I mean, it kind of looks Eastern-y attire, but, you know, whatever. He started to recount that is what the book you just read stated, and realized that the focus was overtly on a relationship between the king and his second-in-command. How come I never noticed the many moments these two spent together in lush fields, noisy taverns, and cozy fireplaces? It also said they were washing their feet a lot. I don't understand what they were meaning. It said they were very good friends. I should begin to inquire better on these works with others in the future. Drained of energy, he opened the book to check when it was written. The forward didn't even include the date of publishing. Horrible, non-standard, and the re-scribes didn't even fix it? How hard could it be to plaster a date somewhere? He kept mumbling to himself as he found the afterword. Once he got past many more pages that told of the sovereign's many deeds. Deeds Zhangken couldn't care less for. The student finally found the author's name. Salem Swiftquill. Give me a sec. Well, all of a sudden that became violent. His title implied that this man had penned even more books, and the thought made Zhangken shiver. A page after credited the re-scribes that were responsible for the book. They probably put more effort into publishing copies of this piece of ash than the author did in writing it. The next few pages included more unnecessary credits that Zhangken skipped over until he finally found a number. 1996. Really? That's atrocious, even for a delusional piece of fiction. What's this here then? Man, I was born before then! It's like, these ancient times. We tribute this work to the learnings of Ascension that he taught us. No, no, no! Full of spite, he tossed the book into the air. Of course. Written by some religious zealots. Of course, this wouldn't lead him anywhere new. Once again, he was back at the start. Already at the brink of yelling out a curse, he learned from his grandmother Zhangken wanted to catch the volume again so as not to suffer the concussion, until he realized that a small piece of paper was fluttering down next to it. Immediately, he thought that it had been his fault. They tore away a corner of the page, and went through scenarios in his head what would happen if he returned the book in this state. I mean, he is throwing books around. A second cataclysm to tear the sky and sea asunder, ash and molten stone raining down on his head. Perhaps he could ask Gale to fix it for him, but then he hadn't returned any of the favors that he did for him yet at all. Before more scenarios could go through his head, the book already landed back on his head and the torn piece of paper on his knees. To his relief, he noticed that the page didn't belong to the book at all. The material and handwriting were completely different from the rest of the dreadful tome. Strangely enough, it didn't line up with any writing he had seen before. The book he just finished was from the Flatlands and had a Kirby style, but what he saw here was very different. An elegant form with strict lines and no smudges at all. A truly professional calligrapher must have written it. Slightly awestruck, Zhangken actually took to read what was written on the paper, only to be disappointed by it being some nonsense with a single cryptic sentence next to it. Ascension's truth. Right at his enemaphore, page 38. It's code, I think. He turned the piece around to be greeted by a cut-off sentence that reached the end of the page. Mentionrath, Enaid a dant ye drank. The verdant tongue. He easily recognized it, as it was one of many languages that were no longer spoken after the sovereign's ascension. They were found in books written by the last king himself, though. Yet a strange note intrigued him far more. Ascension's truth? Right at what? And who did this enem belong to? Curiosity immediately crept on him. Someone who must be doing similar research to him, then hid the note in this book. No one else would look at it, other than those desperate for knowledge such as himself. Immediately, the euphoria of discovery turned into a sense of dread. Sure, he found something of import, but what would he do with it? He had no clue how to decipher the code, nor could he read the text to assign it to any textbook. The potential truth of the world was at his fingertips, and he couldn't even solve the hint that he had received. I might put the text slower because, I don't know, I feel a bit slow today. Zhangken felt just as pathetic as he had at home. He fell back and kept looking at the piece of paper, taking in the rain that had been falling against the window. Truth of why the world was forced to exist like this. Like, with lots of rain or what? Perhaps the records were just that. Truth. But why? Then had there never been more to it? You will never find the truth if you aren't even looking for it. One of the many platitudes Calum came up with to motivate him in the face of roadblocks that he couldn't overcome himself. Calum? If we see his name more, we might try the thing. Okay. Calum. Perhaps. What was his name again? It's not Zhangken.
Zhangken.
Zhangken shot up and grabbed onto the brown leather bag that was sitting next to his bed. He sifted through a book bound with brown leather, stopping at a very specific page. There, he found a timetable of Calum's lectures for the month. He was in the lecture now, but Zhangken could probably ask him about it afterwards. Zhangken himself might be at a loss, but his predecessor had always been encouraged to ask for help. So, what kept him from it? He grabbed his bag and slung it over his shoulder, then proceeded to look at his own calendar. These were located in every dorm room. While the pages were slightly yellowed with age, it was in good condition still. No need to change what isn't broken. He made sure he was on the right day, and, in shock, realized that the month of downpour was ending in just 2 days. It was easy to lose track of time, but calendars were installed in such a way that a ray of light would be focused through the windows onto the current day. Oh, interesting. People work hard on that technique for years. Whoever set them up must live in a life of luxury now. He discarded the thought and took in a sharp breath, leading him to cough immediately from the dust he had swirled up. With confidence in his mind, Zhangken snapped his thumb and middle finger in his right hand, making the fire in the fireplace and candle disappear. A familiar warmth filled Zhangken's chest for a moment, and after taking a deep breath, he opened the door and left his room. The first lecture hall was easily located. Calum was, luckily, always assigned to the same one. At some point, he said that it was simply the location he preferred, even though all the lecture halls were supposed to look the same. He opened the door to the hall with a horrible antler knob and started looking for a vacant seat. Between the mixed figures of listeners, he could also spot some people from his own inauguration? After all, there was no rigid timetable to adhere to. He let himself fall into a chair next to a pair of students who were squinting their eyes, looking at the illegible writing that the raccoon plastered against the board, and back at their own books. Zhangken chuckled with confidence and inched closer to the two of them. His experience with the rather eccentric history professor had been similar. Zhangken reached for one of his own notebooks, and with precision, and put it down so the other two, who started focusing on him instead of the lecture, could take a peek into his notes. He's explaining Soldites again, isn't he? It wasn't even a question. It is said that the world had fallen into patterns at the behest of the sovereign, but people were doing so as well. They were just hard to spot. Every now and then, Calum would talk about how he had revolutionized the water systems of the bigger cities, thanks to his discovery of notes on the so-called Soldites. One of them, a panther dressed in light robes, stared back at him. I, and me and my mates here, can't follow a single word he's saying. We both know the ins and outs of basic sparks and such, but what in the name of depths is he talking about? What exactly do you mean? He likes to talk. A lot when the day is long. Steel constructs systems lie down and redundant setback loop of ink-based circuits that either lead to a positive feedback loop or, on exposure of a muted, negative feedback with a suppressed loop if transparent absorbent casting is used? What in the name of C does he mean? He means, well, he's just talking in words he read and used them to appear smarter. It do be like that. What now? The words, he doesn't know what they mean either. He just wants to appear smart. He just, what? What kind of history professor just makes things up? Apparently these people have never been to America. Believe it or not, the best one out there. He has hemmed every single expedition to Old World ruins so far, organizing and executing them. Is that why he's wearing those scarce Old World clothes? Yes, he apparently found the patterns for them on his very first foray, and he had been wearing them ever since. People never see him without that coat. So, he just wants to make things seem more interesting then. Doesn't help me understanding anything he said about them damn stones, though. I only know they remember sparks, or something. Exactly, and you can't build complex systems around them. Or you can. Like what? I certainly could explain them, but I feel like that would be much more favorable. Is a is a is a practical demonstration. That sentence doesn't make sense. But anyways, you've been listening in, haven't you? The question wasn't directed at the other student, but rather somewhere else, as Zhangken raised his voice. Boy, he's big. The broad-shouldered professor downstairs only nodded, looking up at the two, who also began drawing their case for the other listeners. Zhangken stood up and reached out, as Caleb threw a small black gemstone at him. Smooth to the touch, he almost dropped it, but managed to grasp it properly. The surface was non-reflective, and he could feel something wrapped around the stone, akin to a thread. With turning it a little, he could see that the thread connected down to the end of the lecture hall, where Caleb was holding a different sodite. What's that now? Your cue, I'd say. Do you have any ink? Your cue or my cue? Yeah, your cue. What kind of question is that? Of course I do. The panther grasped the ring, similar to that one that Zhangken wore, and took it off. It was made of transparent, glass-like material, and filled with, almost to the brim, with a white substance. Are you ready down there? I'm always ready. Can we start? Sure can. Stone in hand, Caleb went to the window with it. He opened a small compartment with trained expertise, then held it outside into the rain. Well, what now? Now, you put some ink on the stone. Easy as that. Said and done, the panther pulled out a small latch on the ring's side, letting a droplet of ink escape from its confines. For a moment, things went well, until the water began pouring out of every inch of the stone. In disgust, Zhangken dropped the sodite and accidentally rammed his hand into the panther's side, who still had the compartment of his ring opened. Huh? The sudden movement made more droplets of the substance spray around. They landed on Zhangken's hand and the panther's cheek. Pain spread through his hand immediately, and he screamed out loud. Oh, flames, what did you do? I didn't do anything. You hit me. The panther was holding his cheek where the ink landed, likely feeling the same pain as Zhangken. How do I make it stop hurting? Just wait a bit. It's been... He inhaled sharply. Just a droplet. The sensation should be gone in a moment. What happened? Yeah, I'm kind of curious too. Didn't you know you're not supposed to touch ink? It's the first thing young sparkers learn. The water had begun to pool on the floor from the sodite he had dropped before. Coordinating his legs as hard as he still felt the sharp pain course through his hand. All the while, Caleb's booming laugh got louder by the moment. The pain had finally started to fade from as Caleb Fuck, I don't know what happened. I was like, I'm reading okay, and then all of a sudden it's like, bugger. The pain had finally started to fade as Caleb picked up the stone that had dropped emanating water and threw it out the window compartment he opened earlier. I don't know, I guess if it's like, I know what's going on, it's easier to read, but if I'm like, trying to figure out what's going on, it's like, what? He cast it out with precision, despite the ankle being extremely sharp. When he placed his own sodite down on the wet floor and poured a drop of ink from the small glass onto it as well. In the blink of an eye, the water was gone. Thank you, Professor. No problem, boy. I like opening those that bite off more than they can chew, and let me tell you, dear Zhangken, here always picks the biggest meals from the pile. His laugh filled the hall once again. He then checked on the two students to make sure they were fine. Other than his wet paw, Zhangken felt fine and grumbled a thank you in his direction. His streak of being an inconvenience kept going on. If you've been observing, I don't know why I'm having a hard time reading. He turned to the entire class now. This is what a positive feedback loop on the basis of initiator looks like. The sodite I'd used absorbed water, and the signal was led to the other sodites that would then redistribute it. As it was the recipient of the signal, kept going as long as there was input, and that is how a water system in this academy works. Note that down, please. It will be relevant for the test. Okay, I think I get it. I guess I was getting it where, it was taking water from the outside and bringing it inside, but, Now, everyone can go. Except for Zhangken. I assume there's a reason why he came to attend a lecture for the class you had already passed? After everyone had left, students and professor looked at each other for a few moments, the silence only broken by the rain and wind outside. Then Kalen burst into laughter. You have quite a knack on you for this, Excuse me? Causing trouble. Please, you know full well I don't do it on purpose. Well, it seems like trouble follows you every tiny little step. But that aside, what is so urgent that you need to sit through a lecture? Well, half of a lecture at least, just to talk with me. Right, you see, I got desperate and looked through any book that was talking about the Sovereign's ascension. Did you find anything important? Anything new about his name? His species? His lover? The strange creature from the heavens that assisted him? No, nothing at all. So, a day well spent then. I'd enjoy a taste of what it's like to investigate old world business. No, I really don't. But that's not my point. Here, look at this. He produced a scrap of paper. It's not made of the same paper as the book I found it in. Look, there's some notes here. What is this text on the other side? I can't read it. It's in the verdant tongue. Zhangken, it refers to dragons in some way. To dragons? Yes, here. Drag means dragon. We found into the words next to a drawing of what we concluded as being one. This might be a huge discovery. We barely have any reference to the creatures themselves. What about the rest of the text? Can you read that as well? Admittedly, no. No without reference material. Let me copy the text so I can look up what this might mean. Are your studies on the verdant tongue going anywhere? I figured I might try to learn more of it when I have further access to material from the old world. Right. I would grant you permission, but the whole Historian Association has to oversee your progress and give you the majority vote and all that. Which makes the fact that one book written in an old language has been damaged even more concerning. I was hoping you might know where it belongs to, or this. As I said, I don't. What about the other side? The numbers, the NM. Ascension's truth? Huh. Oh, that's not hard to solve. I think I might have figured it all already. The feeling of glee overcame Zhangken upon hearing this. Finally, progress? So, what's the solution then? I figured you'd best find that out yourself, lad. As his emotions had soared, they came crashing down immediately. It felt as if a hammer had struck him and knocked the air out of his lungs. What? Oh, productivity is the essence of discovery. Proactivity is the essence of discovery. Do it yourself, or you'll never do it. I am sure where to start then. Well, perhaps you can find the person who wrote it. If they're a student or on the Academy's educational body, you know who to ask. I am not going to Gale's sparring lessons. You might just have to. It's all they have to have scheduled in the next few days, and they like to retreat into solitude after teaching all day. Oh, ashes! I don't want to hear anything about combat. I don't care. Come on, Zhangken. Without sacrifice, discovery is out of reach. Fine, I'll do it. But you know full well I won't enjoy it. Lightspeed, lad. Let's meet for lunch again tomorrow in case any of us make discoveries to any degree. Yes? Sounds good to me. With a heavy sigh, Zhangken left the auditorium. No progress seemed to be imminent. The sacrifice he had made for it felt as if it favored him less than any other risk that could have been taken. My mind's going in several directions for some reason, and I can't hold it down. Scenarios of what would come next were already played on repeat in his head, like a painter that drew over his own pictures, showcasing only one. He hated it more than touching the water from before. Zhangken could have stood before the door of the auditorium for a few more moments, pondering the very steps that led him returning here. He pushed away memories of his first and, to date, last lesson in this very room. Alas, he had to go there again if he wanted to further his own goals, even if it came to the cost of his nerves. He forcefully grabbed the doorknob and felt the antlers dig into his paw. He eased off immediately. Whose idea were these horrible things anyways? Cautiously, he poked his head through the opening to assess the situation. Immediately, a familiar professor's voice toned up his ears. At least, he didn't go to the wrong hall by mistake this time. The rows were filled with a huge number of young students, new arrivals, who were present at the introduction ceremony just a few days ago. Though the academy didn't force any uniforms onto the students or professors, many showed up wearing light clothing. Different colors and fabrics indicated the diverse origins of the students at the academy, but the similar cuts of clothes they wore betrayed a picture of a diverse world. They were free to come and study whatever subjects they preferred under the single condition. Everyone that wanted to attend the academy for free had to discover and demonstrate their spark. The lecturing hall had a hanging smell of writing ink and mixed musks of students, combined with the hints of different soaps. Musk. The scribble of quills on paper fought a losing battle against the wind, rain, and lightning raging outside. A harmony that would comfort him. Yet it was the subject being taught that filled him instead with dread. In trying for a free seat, he stared down at the bottom of the lecture hall, where a familiar white-furred fox kept talking about the history of combat and its current-day applications. This nonsense again. Zhangken mumbled as he took a seat far removed from anyone else as possible. He drew a few eyes of attention and smirked. Could he possibly persuade them against learning the arts of combat? Wars were the thing of the old world, after all. Unless you're fighting the dreaded dull beasts. You there, girl with thick arms, what do you hope to gain from learning how to wield a sword? The girl didn't draw her eyes away from the professor out front and tried to answer as steadily as possible. I want to join the Sovereign's army and eradicate the dull beasts. Her voice was louder than expected, and Zhangken flinched in response. Gale did not react to it, though. Shh! But why? There's so many professionally trained soldiers who go and hunt them already. If they fall in battle, they need to be replaced. I need to do my part to make the world safer. After all, they aren't invincible, you know? What do you mean? When I was much younger, my home was invaded by one of those creatures, and a brave soldier sacrificed himself to save us. Her partner killed the beast, and we had to relocate to the capital. Then you could just fight them with your spark. No? What's yours? I can reshape flames. See? That's already such a useful ability to use on the battlefield. Why go out of your way to learn how to wield a weapon of steel? Because both the girl and Zhangken flinched as they heard the professor speak up and turn around. Their uneven gaze fixed onto the two of them. A weapon is not a finite source. But on the battlefield, would quickly find themselves out of ink. Thus, the fool who does not bring a weapon for protection falls to their own arrogance. He's God's homophobia. Hemochroma? Yeah. I like hemochroma, or whatever it's called. The girl, and everyone else in the lecturing hall as well, wrote down what Gale said straight away, although Zhangken sighed in frustration. Now to you, Zhangken. Your comments made it clear that you have no intention of learning today. Is your only purpose to disrupt? I actually came to ask a question. During my lesson, why is it combat related? Wait, why? Is it combat related? Well, no. Perhaps it could have been a better choice to wait until after and not complain about me talking about my current subject. Well, I intend to, but your irrational hatred of weapon-based combat had you talking again. To my students, during my lesson, I just don't think it's all that useful. I see. Would you join me in the front then? I am not particularly fond of. That's not a request. Come here. Now. Zhangken contemplated the situation and slowly made his way to the front, where his friend waited. He could have simply turned around to exit, but that would have left Zhangken standing on even looser foot with him than before. With a heavy heart and a sense of dread building in his chest, he chose to stand right in front of Gale, only barely matching their heights. As always, their mismatched eyes didn't betray a single thought that was going through Gale's head. No thoughts, head empty. Though if Zhangken had to guess what would come next, was a mix between education and humiliation. Just looking at the thing there. At least, you seem to understand your situation. Splendid. Dear students, this is Zhangken, one of the oldest students gracing our halls these days. Not because he's been here for very long, but rather due to his late decision to join us here. Hey, I decided not on my own accord that my spark was awakened too late. You could have always joined us the other way. Whatever. I'm not having the discussion now. Not in front of everyone. What is it you want then? I could ask you the same thing. What is it that you promised yourself to get for barging into my lesson? I found a clue while doing research and needed your help. Yet another delusional request regarding your strange quest to prove me wrong in believing that the Sovereign is the true God of the New World, I assume. Perhaps today I shall humor you, if you would be so kind as to assist with the demonstration of stances and their report in battle. He would have declined on the spot, if it weren't for the fact that he really needed Gale's assistance on the matter. Also, I guess, is the Sovereign supposed to be a deer? Or maybe it's the headmaster, but I feel like if he leaned forward right here, because the horn's there, that would be no bueno. So he stood upright and nodded. despite the impending ridicule, as that he could already feel on the tip of his tongue. I do have to admit, though, I didn't bring any of my countless training swords that decorate my room, so I have to say that I shall supply you with one. I would not be teaching combat if I were not ready to grant arms at any time, my good friend. Ashes. He cursed under his breath. Gale swiftly procured an additional sword from the rack located near the podium, and then drew one they were carrying along. Carefully, they laid them both onto the podium itself and touched each of them. Sharp. A single word, resounding with power, echoed through the entire lecture hall. The clear shiver could be felt by everyone witnessing Gale's powerful spark at work as they lifted the fingers from the swords. The action had no indicator of what happened. Usually a spark drew with it a visual or audio indicator. The power simply became true. It was not like swords had lost a sharp edge. Rather, it was as if the swords had always been blunt. As with every time Gale used their spark, the single feeling of unease crept over Zhangken as he could feel them looking at those sitting in the seats. He could see them shivering, confused, or nauseous. Zhangken could be assured they all felt unease after Gale altered the sword state. A terrifying power, used for such a normal act. There was a reason why Gale had been chosen to become an inheritor of the Twistwood title. With one hand, he took up the sword Gale had taken from the rack, while the professor wielded his own. It was more decorated than a practice sword handed off to his students. While Gale fluidly took the stance he could remember seen once before, Zhangken tried to follow suit, imitating something that he had seen in one of the practice books. His legs slid slightly apart, while he held the sword with both hands in front of his body. What are you doing there? Why are you holding the blade with both hands? It could not be clearer that the sword I just gave you is a one-handed weapon. Well, then what am I supposed to do with my other hand? His hands were wrapping around the stout leather of the handle before. Now, his left one let go and started hanging off to the side. He could admire the simple yet forge work the sword in his hand for a few more hours, if he were given time, but as Gale already built visible tension, he knew he would have to react soon. Zhangken tried to assemble his thoughts and memories, drawing a line with his mouth in order to assume a proper fighting stance as well. Drawing a line with his mouth. Right foot forward, left foot back. Hand behind his back, clutching a fist. Blade tightly aligned, horizontally before him. It looked a bit like the one he had assumed before, but this is supposed to give him a better flow of energy. Oh, rain stance? Against another one-hand blade. I really thought you could try something more offensive against my flame stance. Yes, well, I figured I might simply surprise you. Let us assume you put that much thought into your choosing of a fighting style. Come at me then. I am granting you the advantage. Zhangken slashed forward. A futile attempt, Gale immediately hopped back, and using Zhangken's uncontrollable step forward, they slashed for a weak point. The swords collided. Gale immediately stabilized, while Zhangken's own stance wavered. Sloppy. Gale used the stance and slashed out again, this time horizontally. Zhangken tried to duck backwards, but lost his own footing. He dodged barely by changing his angle immediately. Fool, you're just widening your opening like this. A determined step forward kept their movement flowing, and they utilized momentum, delivered a heavy vertical hit. They as in Gale? Zhangken, after finding his balance again, grabbed the sword with both hands and blocked. His core shaken and he fell, but Gale spun around to recover from the stagger, while also keeping the energy flowing. You were thinking with the wrong weapon. A one-handed sword lets you dodge easier. They took a few steps back, as if dancing, and once again came in for an attack. A sound of a snap followed a sound through the hall. A small flame had grown from Gale's sleeve after Zhangken used Spark to place some of the flame he had stored up into them. Gale's eyes darted forward towards her sleeve and then swiftly back in the direction of their opponent, who felt a sense of self-fulfillment. Zhangken's weapon now rested in his non-dominant hand, while his fingers remained in the form taken after using a spark. Gale simply sighed, as they noticed that Zhangken had no intention to wield the sword properly again. With one hand, they quickly killed the flame, marking the dying breath with a hiss. Zhangken felt disheartened and dropped his guard. Focusing on a spot he planted the fire on. Foiled, this easily. He could not see a follow-up attack coming, and aimlessly swung his blade around. Gale feigned a strike and spun around, stopping with his sword's tip right at their opponent's throat. You're dead. You should use more fire if you want to actually harm me, or distract me even. As you could not burn me directly, you should also have chosen a different spot for application. Learn how to wield a weapon, if I teach you how. Every breath that tries to teach does not reach you is wasted. Pay attention when I demand it. Everyone knows you can easily absorb the lessons you are interested in. Or stop coming to my lectures altogether, so as to not waste mine, your, and everyone else's time. They sighed and pulled the sword back, then simply beckoned for the other blade. Dull. The same sensation went through the room again, people shuddering at the pure power following from Gale's mouth or flowing. The swords were placed back where they belonged, and Gale looked back to the small patch of burnt fabric on their shoulder. Such an insignificant attempt at diversion. What were you thinking? That the combination of smell and optical change would get you distracted enough for me to strike properly. Perhaps try to get a little bigger next time. Heh, got him. Why not the entirety of my jacket, or plan it on my glasses? It wouldn't have worked on your glasses. They're made of iron and glass. You know my spark doesn't work like others, which simply shows me that you cannot be trusted with expanding it on your own. You will have to adapt, eventually. Thanks. They turned towards the students, who had watched the quick duel, eyes focused as they wandered through the rows. I presented all of you a prime example of why you are not to slack off in regards to your training. First and foremost, you should learn basic stances for any of the commonly used weapons and how they are utilized during combat. Unlike practicing against normal weapons will give you any advantage against creatures that act on instinct. Once the rainy season stops, we can practice outside, where everyone will have ample room. Take my teachings to heart, and you will surely not find yourself in a situation like our dear friend Zhangken here. You can be sure I do not plan to find myself in this sort of situation again anytime soon. Thank you very much. With this, you are dismissed. Read up on what we went through, and try to think of a way to apply your own magical abilities towards weaponized combat. The crowd of students lifted slowly, packing their books and writing utensils as their gazes lingered on Zhangken and Gale in the front. Some filled with pity, others with curiosity, and yet more with valor to do better. Gale gave Zhangken a pat on the shoulder, a rare sign of affection from the usually cold professor. Their arm was muscular in a practical way, slightly thicker arms than an average person would have, fur hiding in actually trained muscles. Exactly, whatever. In comparison, Jenkins' own muscles were barely maintained, and simulated, at best, leftovers from days at home where he was asked to carry material of any kind for townsfolk and merchants alike. Was that really necessary? I just can't grasp any of those techniques and stances described in the books you recommended to me. Gale shook their head, and it is kind of interesting that it's not he or her, it's they. That was the thing that was kind of confusing me a bit. Man, now I'm feeling like those other people. Anyways, as they scraped together a number of documents and cleaned up the blackboard. When they stood in front of Zhangken, with arms crossed again, their eyes analyzed him for the utmost tuft of hair from to his shoes. You are in terrible shape. Even I could see that. This is simply an important lesson for the class, and for you to take better care of yourself. I do take care of myself. Otherwise I wouldn't be here, standing and breathing. Zhangken, you are shaking, likely due to malnutrition, if I were to make a guess. Additionally, you stink. Horribly. I stink? Of what? Smoke, writing ink, paper. How do you stink of paper? I wouldn't call that an unpleasant smell, actually. Gale sighed at the response. Your clothes and fur are dusty. You're not taking care of yourself, and this worries me. What have you been doing? Of course you're reading. Your obsession with the sovereign, despite your lack of faith, is frankly disturbing. Why not accept him as the ruler of the now? Because I just can't concentrate on anything else, Gale. Ever since I was young, I knew there was something wrong with the stories we were told. Something wrong with the god of our world? Are you listening to yourself? What is there to be wrong with the divine will? Everything. Everything you know of the world could be wrong. We are living in times without war. We have been for 2,000 years. And you have you have the gall to say this is wrong? Peace? That's not what Why are you hesitating then? Do you desire for the fires of conflict to burn the world to the ground once again? Because you believe the stories are not accurate? I do not want war, Gale. I simply want the truth. So, what would you do once you uncover it? Perhaps, even if it were a lie, there is a reason the truth is shrouded. For the better. A heavy sigh left Gale as they pinched her snouts. I was worried about you. I am worried about you. You have been absent for too many lessons recently, and I have not seen you in the dining hall either. As I said, I was busy researching. You need to understand that no matter your ambition, they will not do you any good if you are in your grave. You are only 30 years old. Your entire life is still ahead of you. No need to rush. Oh, thank God! I'm sick and, I'm, a bit past my mid-30s, but it's nice to hear something where it's like, oh, you're 30 years old, you have an entire life ahead of you. It's like, thank you. I always hate those animes where, maybe it's because I'm old, but it's kind of just thing where it's like, here's all these animes, and they're like, it's 12-year-olds doing all this stuff. Or like, I don't know, what was that one thing? There was Final Fantasy X 10-2, and it's like, here's these rulers of these three things. They're like 19, 20, and 24. It's like, okay, these guys are so young. Why are they so young? But what was that one? Kaiju number 8. I like that because it's like, oh, this main character is middle-aged-ish. He's in his 30s. I know. Fine then. You seem to understand and you even made the effort to fight back during the lesson. I'll see what help I can offer you." Upon hearing these words, Zhangken's mood brightened. A glimmer returned to his eye. Once I had vanished, he had felt the bitter defeat at his friend's hands. I discovered this in one of the books I had been reading. It's obviously a ripped out page, but there's something written on its side. To me, it seems like some strange code that I cannot decipher at all. Perhaps you've heard of an enum before? After Zhangken took out a piece of paper and waved it towards the professor, Gale held it in front of their own hands and narrowed his eyes, held it in their own hands. "And you're sure you did not accidentally rip it out yourself?" He claimed claimed it to be a note of sorts, not belonging to the original book. "Yes, look." Zhangken turned the corner around and pointed exactly at the writing on the other side. Despite being almost close already, Gale squinted his eyes even further, discolored the pupils, trying to scrutinize the contents of the paper as much as I could. "I'm going to be fully honest with you. I do not see a difference." "What do you see that I do not?" "The text is clearly prescribed. You can see that there is no lines or anything that would indicate a feather or stylus that had drawn them." "But scribes perfectly replicate the original. How can you be so sure?" Just feel over this side, then on the other. Clearly there's a relief here from putting an object down, like a quill or a stylus. But the other side here, simply slammed onto the paper, just like the rescribes do it." "That is quite the attention you're spending on minuscule details like this. Discerning if something has been handwritten or not, as one of Caleb's very first lessons was one of Caleb's first lessons. It's rather easy once you understand the concept. Honestly, I'd rather keep myself from his curriculum. My parents may trust him, but he encourages people to stray from the sovereign too much. Additionally, the ink the verdant's tongue is written in has a different coloration, same as the page number. The note is a message from someone, and they are, or were, at the academy." Gale looked up at the explanation and opened their eyes again, tilting their head and smirking slightly. Full glad I am not your not that I'm not your studies. Full glad I am that your studies are bearing fruit." Oh, that was hard to read. "But where in all this do I fit in? I'm not able to tell you what page this torn out piece belongs to." In excitement, Zhangken began waving around the notes even more, his tail swishing back and forth while his ears began to twitch. It was quite different sights from Gale, who kept full control over their expressions. "I want to ask if you knew any professor, faculty member, or student that had this writing style, of the code, I mean." "And why should I?" "Come on, don't act coy about it. Everyone knows you can easily recognize if a student wrote someone else's test." "Because I control the tests of a single class." "Yes, but this stays true even if someone who's already graduated helps a student. I know it happened before." "So, you want me to breach the duties trust that has been imposed on me for a little puzzle that might as well be the combination of a safeguarding vault of a professor or student attending the academy, trying to entice me that I shall shrink my many responsibilities for you, a friend of 1 year. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Indeed it is. Even if I could, I do not have the foggiest whose writing it might be. Ashes. But I do think I know someone who could potentially help us. There's a librarian in is on shift tonight, and his spark might be of use. The head librarian? Which one is that again? The sheep? I doubt you've seen him at all. He usually works with the fewest people occupy when the fewest people occupy the library space. So, will his spark help us? Please, just wait and see. Assume you'll have shelves of books turning to food for the dust mites that might as well pay for occupying your room. You should hand some of them in as well, just as I have a volume that needs to be returned. So, we meet at the library on the second moonrise today? I'm glad you know my preferred times by now. That face. Additionally, please, Zhangken. Yes? Take a bath and wash your clothes, or at least wear a new change and apply some perfume. I implore you. Huh? Professor Calum might have a soft paw for you, but that doesn't excuse you being a nuisance to everyone's noses. I'm not a nuisance. Yes, you are. A massive one. To the general peace of everyone. Hey! No, I shall not argue over this. We'll see each other at the library. Do not be late. And do not stink. A confused and agitated Zhangken took his things and slowly ascended the wooden stairs of the lecture hall, his ears catching the sigh from below. He wanted to avoid a bath, so at least he could put on another set of clothes and change his bandage as well. When Zhangken looked back to see his friend's face, a smile quickly faded as their gazes met, and Zhangken himself felt a tuck at the corner of his mouth as his tail swished from side to side in excitement. Oh, we are at time. Man. Okay, there's another deer over there. So, man, I feel a little bad because it's like, I felt good today, and then I'm starting to read and felt okay, and then all of a sudden, crapola. Let's see. We have, looking at the images here, we got Tiergar, which looks like a wolf with a beard. And that's all the characters that I see. Though there is a CG there. Wait, he has a ring there? How many fingers do these guys have anyways? Is this guy married? Don't know. He doesn't seem like the marrying type. But I guess that's gonna be the end of this quick look. Hyena. So again, if you want me to do a Let's Play series of this game, tell me, and I'll give it a point which will up higher on the user's choice list. And if you have a quick look you want me to do of any other game, then tell me, and I'll put it in these quick looks, and also give it a point. But also, if you want to play this game, it's available free on itch.io, and updated as of this recording 49 days ago. Or it at least has a devlog. But yeah, they don't have a Patreon. Is there anything else? I guess comment, guys. I like comments, tell me what you like, dislike, tips, because otherwise, if you like my YouTube and Lexi Group, then please like, subscribe, and check out the videos epic ground. Please remember to new animals that control the pet population. But that's not the end of this, because yeah, it's time to figure out what we're doing next week. So, we're going to take Spark and put it over here and do this. We got 7 left at the moment. Let's see. Random number generator. Tell me what we're gonna do. Number 2. Which is some with a leaf. Oh, I think this was one that someone was suggesting. Is it? What's it called? Hell. Oh, 1L. I guess I have to be like, yeah, I'm an adult. Oh, there we go. Hello World, a Tanuki Tale. A game about As I'm going to read the synopsis. Hellward is a gay, furry romance visual novel about a fish out of water tanuki named Howl. After after a year of intimate long-distance relationship, he finally pursues his romantic interest. Given his propensity for misfortune, many mishaps await Howl in his effort for love. On top of that, in the territory of Hellward, secrets and dangers abound. Fuck, I swear I can read. Who have much to overcome, while also juggling secrets of his own. So if you want to play this game, it's available free on itch.io. But if you want to support the people that make this game and or get the news version earlier, you can, because they have a Patreon, and it's like lowest is $2 a month. It doesn't seem like there's early access to the game, but there's early access to stuff. Hey, is there anything else I can think about doing? No, I think that's it. That's the end of this. And again, sorry for being like, I'm gonna read, and then being like, oh poop. Oh, they have that thing right there. Cool. But yeah, this one seems a little wooey. I mean, let's see. There's like him being licked there, being a sweaty mom spaghetti, and then. But is this like some kind of RPG thing? There seems to be balls. I don't know. Anyways, when was this updated? Um, oh, good thing I looked at that. It says it was last updated, at least the devlog part, in March '07 of 2023. So that's, pretty much 2 years ago by now. That's too bad. Anyways, until next time, another quick look. Yeah, we'll see some other game. That being this one. So thanks and see ya.